So, hello everyone. This is the sixth episode of the Founders Interviews by S4S. S4S is the student pillar of the Community for Learning and Innovation, which is the body of the university that focuses on innovating and facilitating educational innovation on campus, mostly through supporting different partnerships, initiatives, and as you might know them, student societies or associations. And one of them is the Happy Student Society, which Ramon here founded. And so we have him here today to talk about the association a little bit, to tell us a little bit about himself and why he started in the first place. So thank you very much for being here, Mo. And please tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll let you to found the Happy Students Society.
Yeah, sure. Yes, thank you for having me today. So my name is Ramu. I was a student at Erasmus University. I did a study in economics and law. And yeah, there I also founded the Happy Student Society, which is already quite some years ago that we started with this organization. And how I came up with the idea to start the Happy Student Society was actually because of two reasons. The first was I saw an increasing trend in the pressure that we are putting on students, both that like students are putting on themselves and what society is, let's say putting on students. And the other thing that I saw, that was actually what I followed at a online course at the University of Stanford, was that they are actually pretty far with like teaching well-being. So they have this course about like the science behind happiness, and that was like one of the most popular courses ever given at an American university. So I was like, yeah, wow, that is so amazing that you are teaching students something about their like life lessons or wisdoms lessons. And that is also something that we should have here in the Netherlands. And it was actually quite strange that I didn't really saw this here at our university. So I was like, yeah, I think we should do something with this. And that's actually basically how it all started, or like the idea of Happy Student Society.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so here we are. And so what is it actually that Happy Student Society does on like daily basis, let's say? What are its activities?
Yeah. So what we are trying to do with our society is we are trying to increase the well-being of our students, and also to support their mental resiliency of Erasmus University students. And the way we are doing this, or trying to achieve our goal, is by organizing courses and events, trying to be more active on social media on this topic, and to create awareness. And also we have student well-being mentors, and those are students that are trained by the university psychologist to talk with students about this subject, because sometimes it can be quite hard to like talk about like feelings, and especially if it's not going that well. Sometimes also like the threshold can be quite high to talk to like a psychologist or something, and that's why we're offering like on a low key level just conversations with our well-being mentors. So those are like a little bit of the events that we are trying to host. And the themes that we are focusing on is actually like, one is happiness, and just in its broadest sense, like what makes you happy, what is the science behind happiness, and like everything surrounded around happiness. We are also having events on like anxiety and stress. So for example, stress management, or how to deal with failure, or with like increasing pressure or depression or something like that. And the last part of our last pillar actually is loneliness. And that is actually something that I noticed here at our university, especially amongst international students, that when they are going here to the Netherlands, they are quite often here alone, or arrived here alone, and all their friends are back at home, and their family also. So there's not really like a support system in place here to really catch them up, and especially if they are feeling a little bit lonely. So that's also like a big part of our work that we do to combat loneliness under students.
Very nice, very nice. And what kind of role did CLI or S4S play in the sort of origins or in in you trying to make Happy Students official, let's say?
Yeah, so the role that the CLI played was actually quite important. So when I had this idea of like doing something on like mental health and well-being for students, I talked with a lot of different people within our university. So at the one hand, the university professors, that were also confirming like the things that I saw, like the increasing pressure on students. I also did a survey among students, and there I also saw like, okay, but what are the things that you want to learn? And like what are the themes that you are interested in and now struggling with. But those were just only like ideas or like like events that we could try to host.
Yeah.
But there was not really like something like a more pragmatic way of like, okay, but how to like make it now more available to everyone, or like the solution. And that's actually where I got a lot of help from like the students for students department, in order to like structure my organization like the way I would like to host events on a regular basis, trying to define my target audience, and also like all the of course practical stuff that, okay, how can you market your events, how can you build a team around yourself, and make sure that everyone scales the organization that you are trying to see it right now. And all those stuff really helped me quite a lot, especially in the beginning, because then I was still new with this whole concept. And now here we are with like already, I think this is the third year now that we are running this organization. So that's a bit how it started on.
That's the journey. And so how many projects is there now that Happy Students does? And do you think that the organization itself is successful for the projects? How do you sort of measure the success of the projects, let's say?
I think that like every year we are trying to host a little bit more events, and also because we know like what is working for students and what is not working for students. So I think now we have like a little bit more than 20 events a year. Some of them are partnerships that we do with other organizations, and some of them are things that we do on our own. In the way we are measuring the success of our events, at the beginning, in the first few years, I was really struggling with this because, like the impact you are trying to make and the students that you are trying to help are sometimes not that easy to reach, because still sometimes now like talking about mental health can be quite challenging for like our target audience. But there, what I do see is that the people that we do reach and are coming to our event are very grateful and very happy that we have just like such a space, and also just such a safe space where they can talk freely about the subject. And I think that's the way we are now trying to measure it. Is like, okay, but what is the impact that we are making on the people that we do reach, and then a little bit less on like, do we really reach the students that we like that need the help the most, because sometimes they all already have conversation with a psychologist or something else, and that's also not like all our field of expertise. So we are a little bit more on like the forefront of it. And it's also something you see, especially with the events that we have right now online, that there is like much more interest in it for this subject.
That might be partly due to the current pandemic, right? Because I guess a lot of people are struggling, and so I was wondering, how much of an influence do you think the pandemic has had on mental health of students and on people in general? Because it's talked about often now, but you're kind of interested in this field, so I was wondering, how do you see it?
So of course, I do think that with the pandemic, it can take quite a toll on your mental health. Just because like all the restrictions that are putting on like that governments are putting now in society, and there are less ways to really like connect with your fellow students, for example. And especially if you're now like sitting whole day at your home, do not have that much variety in your day, it can be quite tough, especially if there's also no like really clear end of it all. And I think especially also for students that it can be hard, because the student time is normally the time of your life that you are meeting a lot of new friends and meeting a lot of new students from like all over the world, and go to parties together, go to dinner together, and really build a connection with like your fellow classmates. But if this is now all taken online, I do think it can be quite tough to really see also the bright side of it sometimes. So how I see it is that, and that's also something that I've heard from the participants of our activities, that they are like very happy that we have such a place right now, because it's sometimes tough in the situation that we are in.
And this might be a little bit of a controversial question, and also, as you said, you're not or as we talked about before, you're not really an official or anything, but do you maybe think that the consequences of some of the corona measures in Europe, for example, have led to worse consequences or worse impacts on people if you count in the psychological health? And if you sort of compare, like, okay, what would have happened if people have gotten sick or something, and what is the sort of widespread, silent, invisible effect it has on psychological health?
I think this is like an interesting question. So what is like the way I see it now is that you cannot see, like, for example, when we are now, like, I cannot see like what your feelings are, like, but you can measure someone's physical state of like how they are, and that makes it sometimes hard to really like see, okay, but like how are people now feeling? And when we are taking measures, or like when like measures are taken into account here in the Netherlands or anywhere else, the psychological effect that it can have is sometimes, in my opinion, a little bit underestimated, or not. I'm not like the type of guy that knows a lot about like how to battle corona, but I do think it is important, especially for like the students, that there is room to really to connect with each other, and really not be in only a small apartment, small student place the whole day. And that is sometimes the case. I know it myself. I think it's quite detrimental for like some students, especially, or like younger kids.
And what do you think, also from experience of having the association for 3 years and meeting all these people, what are some of the other major sources of just mental problems besides, if you take the corona out of the equation, and besides this current situation, what are the most common sort of problems students are faced with?
So I think there are like quite a lot of factors that are leading to increase in student pressure and like declining student well-being. And these are the financial aspects, the societal or cultural aspects, and the individual, like the student itself. So if you think about the financial aspects of like studying, for example, it can be quite hard to study and also at the same time make sure that you can pay the tuition fee, or if you are from abroad and you don't get the Dutch student grant, or in the past we had like a student grant, but now it's a loan system, then it can be quite hard, especially if you don't succeed in it. Then you are like left with like the student debt, and like how are you going to deal with this? So all the financial constraints or like aspects is I think a big driver of it for some students, at least. You also have, for some students, the societal or cultural aspect. And with this, I mean that like the ways the society is presenting like how success should be, and the way we are like with like everyone is yeah you like is saying, or for example, no, like a better way of like putting it is that you have a lot of students that are taking courses in order because they know that they can get a job with it, or that it is something that will make them successful in like the traditional sense of the word. But that's not something that the student is also liking, and I think there we sometimes see a problem with students, that they put a lot of energy in something that they don't like, or like studying, for example, at university, or taking courses that they don't want to take, but they know they can be successful in the way we are now presenting in the media. Or that, like, for example, parents are putting a lot of pressure. You have to go to university. You cannot go to another level. Go to the highest level, and yeah, or they get the highest grade and everything.
Yeah.
So that is everything with societal and cultural aspect. And the last part, which is also true, I think also still now, is that we as students are also putting a lot of pressure on ourselves, in the sense that we have to combine everything. So we have to combine like our student job with like our university courses, with a lot of extracurricular internships or
Yeah.
activities, and at the same time be at like all the nice party, and also manage everything like it's fine, and we are doing well.
Yeah.
And for some students, that is also, yeah, sometimes hard to really balance it out. Um, yeah, so even if you didn't have Corona, I think there are like still.
I think the screen froze just a little bit, so maybe give it a second. Hopefully, it's gonna go back to normal. Yeah, it's perfect again.
Okay.
All good.
Yeah. So those three factors are actually, yeah, causing major problems, I think, and that is of course beside Corona.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does this answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Question?
But I think also in private we talked about, or you mentioned when we talked, just you and me, about the role of social media, right, on psychological
Yeah.
health. And I myself read a book called Digital Minimalism, which talks a lot about how social media and phones are super bad for society and all. And there's one whole chapter dedicated to the increasing rates of depression and anxiety among teenagers. And they show this graph, and they show how the spike started exactly when the smartphones were introduced on mass scale to teenagers. And the impact, the super strong correlation cell phones and social media, I suppose, has on teenagers' mental health. And how, yeah, as you talked about, they really always have this tendency to compare themselves to the prettiest standard or the best standard.
Yeah.
And at the same time,
yeah, I think, and that's also what you like, that is now so easy, of course, with like social media, and like with everyone having a smartphone,
yeah,
that it's easy to compare like to the best standards out of the world. So you see on the LinkedIn only like the nice pages with everyone getting the perfect scores and like the perfect internships. You see on like Instagram everyone going to the best vacations and having like the nicest picture, or at the best parties. And also on like Facebook, like everyone has like an interesting life, and
yeah,
not really showing like the pictures that they are also in the library and also studying until very late at night or something like that. And yeah, that is, yeah, that is a good point that you also mentioned, like the use of social media, and also the way social media is presenting like everything surrounding well-being, or like the way we define success and happiness.
yeah,
And that it's like, from what I've learned also from like the courses that I took at the online course from Stanford, is that happiness is like different for like everyone. Everyone has their own triggers of like, or ways of finding happiness,
yeah,
and it's not the same for everyone. But like the way we are sometimes presenting is that we all should go after the same goal. We all should go to the university. We all should, yeah,
yeah, yeah. And on a brighter note, or on we're sort of leading towards the end. So on a brighter note, I was wondering if you think maybe there's some positive externalities or some positive outcomes of the pandemic, and maybe it's an opportunity for us to really start rethinking the importance or reevaluating the importance of mental health, and maybe it's sort of gonna help to bring awareness towards that. So I was wondering if you think if you think that's the case, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, so of course with like the pandemic now, we do recognize or sometimes see that we took things for granted that were like that we now so badly want, and really valuing this, that we had like such a beautiful life, or that we had the opportunity to go out and to have dinner, or
Yeah.
to meet up with friends, and don't have like a certain time that you have to be back at home. I think all those measures that are now in place really makes sure that we think of the things that we did have, or that we value a lot.
Yeah.
And I think for yeah, I think this can makes us a little bit more grateful for the things that we had. And even if after the pandemic is over, we can still like value everything that like life has to offer. But we do have to make sure that we are not falling back in our old patterns that we had before Corona. So really balancing everything out, and making sure that we are not doing like too many things at the same time, to be in like too many different places at the same time.
Yeah.
And really take life as it comes by. That is, as at least for my, also like a lesson that I've learned through Corona. And also right now I also think that the psychological effects of like Corona, or like the measures that are taken in place due to Corona, that it also makes sure that we have like a broader conversation about mental health, and mental health on the younger students and kids. And this is also like, I also see it now that it's more visible now within the media.
Yeah.
So we do, as a society, make sure that we are talking about this subject a little bit more. And that it's basically okay to not feel okay for a day or something. Because when we talk about mental health and well-being, we always talk about really like the hard part, like the people with the depression, people with like a lot of stress. But I think it would be nicer to see it like as a whole, like mental health, or like well-being as a whole. So not only focusing on like the negative aspects that there are, but also more the positive aspects that they are, and how we can train it, and or like what are the tools to really make sure that we get the most out of it. Yeah, so that will be nice to have
Yeah.
after the pandemic ended. Yeah, and of course we as like Happy Student Society are like here also to play a role, and to make sure that we offer students those tools. Yeah.
Yeah. And lastly, about the Happy Students Society, you are introducing a new course, right? Which is, as you're talking about right now, is actually focused on a failure and how to deal with failure. Is that so?
Yeah, that's like a course that is on my list for like quite some time already, because I think that it's also important to teach like students like, okay, but like how do you deal with like failing, or like
Yeah.
failing in general. Because now we are only focusing, okay, you have to get a pass, or you have to get like the 60 credits in order to go to the next year. But we are not really teaching students, okay, but what if it don't happen?
Yeah.
Like, what is your plan then? And we all know, like later in life there will be times that you're gonna fail, or that there is certain things that you cannot control. And like, how are you going to deal with it right then? And I
Yeah.
think it's nice to have, or at least give the opportunity to students to train with this a little bit more when they are in university. So that's something that is that we are working on, or at least we are trying to implement soon. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. And lastly, my question is back sort of towards you, personally. So I was wondering, if you don't mind telling us, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years, and in which way are you going to bring whatever you have done in Happy Students, regarding mental health, to your sort of everyday life, or to, your job or your office or whatever, where
Yeah.
you're going to be? So how do you plan on implementing that part of what you have done here in your future life?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think with like the Happy Student Society and really like setting up the organization and everything taught me quite some lessons, which I will take into account in the future, of course. So, but also like the importance of like all the work that we are doing and the impact that we are making with it. So in the future, this is some like definitely an area I want to grow in, and even want to yeah, expand in a little bit further. And yeah, the ways how I can do it, I think, yeah, for example, now right now I'm like working at like a big corporate company, and I don't think that like the things that we are teaching now and to students is also relevant actually to like everybody in society.
Yeah.
So yeah, so maybe like grow a little bit more on like the specific tools that we can train to uh, young starters at their career or people that are a little bit further in their career, and how we can best support them in
Mm.
the goals that they still have. Yeah, I think that's like a nice challenge to like work on in the future. And with like all the experience that I got through Students for Students, I will make sure that when I have an idea, I will make the best out of it. Yeah.
Alrighty, cool. Well, thank you very much for the interview. Thank you for starting this association. Thank you for what Happy Students is doing, because I definitely think it's a nice thing, and it's bringing some value to campus. It's helping people out. So thanks for all of that, and thanks for giving us our time today. And have a nice day.
Yes. Thank you for your questions, and yeah, thank you for the interview.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye.